Welcome to another edition of CresTV. My guest this week is Roneel Singh from WSP, a leading consultancy firm. Welcome, Roneel.
Thank you for having me on.
Roneel, technology's moved pretty fast, and there's certainly a lot of projects on at the moment and a lot of needs for things like Teams rooms and other sorts of things. I guess I'm looking to see, what is the enterprise when you meet with them? What are they asking for? What's at the top of the priority list, and how has that perhaps changed over the recent years?
Look, I guess I'll start by just the trends before COVID. I guess it's a very big change and shift in the industry, how people think pre-COVID, and the term pre-COVID and post-COVID gets used quite a lot lately. And I think the trends we were seeing that was really important for most of our clients going into sort of late 2018 and most of 2019 was about simplicity. The challenges they were having was to go back to every room or every space being VC enabled. They were going down that path. Huddle spaces were the ones where you were challenged because of acoustics or the stand-up meeting is very hard to do. You're in a noisy environment and still trying to do VC. With, I think, the push from Teams at that point, and WebEx coming a bit more into a software-based platform and Zoom sort of sitting in that periphery, people were looking at a lot more rooms being VC enabled, not hardware codec, but software codec. That, I guess, that caused its own challenges. They saw that every room had to have a different solution or different sizes. People really went in the old days, old mentality of VC. So it's a small, a medium, a large, and the user experience differed. How you worked into the space differed. But the problem was, I think people forgot that you were using these software-based things either at your desk and then you were transitioning to the meeting room. Mm-hmm. So the experience question wasn't about small, medium, and large. What we were facing with clients was, how do you replicate the experience or make it as the same between a room and your desk or your mobile device?
So you get that adoption of technology.
Yeah, I think that's probably spot on, and the simple user interface. So they were the two biggest challenges. Where we've moved away from now, I guess post-COVID, the question that's being asked by a lot of our clients is, what brings you back into the workplace?
Yeah.
So from the lots of little low cost, I guess, the flex solutions and the Mercuries on desks, they're now looking at, okay, these meeting rooms are now at the forefront. So you may get the transitional thinking, instead of large open plan offices with lots of people in there and a number of meeting rooms, they're seeing that you may spend more time on conference calls. You may spend more time actually with a headset. So instead of turning the space into a call center, we're seeing the transition from our enterprise clients to go, well, people can work from home. When they're in the office, they're likely to need more meeting spaces, smaller meeting spaces. So the meeting room has moved up at the pecking order.
Yes.
And the finish, the detail, but not the large boardrooms. These are those rooms we generally neglected in enterprise. We essentially put something very cheap in there because it was a small meeting room, the 3 to 4 person meeting room. And I guess the change then that we've seen is that we always had audio is king. I mean, and still is. If you can't hear me, you can't have this session.
Yep.
I guess we then turned around and said, video content presentation is the next most important. Yep. We're getting conflicting views on that. And the point being that if I could see a presentation and I have my video turned off, then the interaction is lost. Right. You might as well be doing that by a delayed feed or a broadcasted recording.
Sure.
So I think the clients are now saying, how can I have the meeting experience with the technology being seamless across all platforms for all users?
Yep.
Also, I want to be able to see the whites of their eye. I want to be able to interact with them. So it's now sort of transforming into a slightly different requirement. Or everything we've worked towards and all of the vendors have worked towards to sort of marry up their products for the Zoom and the Teams spaces is slightly being flipped on its head again, because we're now trying to say, well, I want every meeting will have some participants that are external.
Yep.
And the person in the room can see 4 or 5 heads, but everybody else can see a large room with 3 or 4 people, which is quite tiny. So how do we normalize the experience? And that's the term we've been getting quite a lot. We want to normalize the experience no matter where you are and make it equal.
Yep. So I think that's right. And we hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, work now will be a place that people come to collaborate and as a resource center. And I guess it's challenges for guys like you is to make that real. What does that really mean, as you say? And I think that term normalize the experience is exactly right. Because once you have a certain number of people in the room in that meeting and they're engaged, and a person remotely feels disconnected from that, you've lost the whole equation, right? This whole thing of people having a hybrid workplace goes out the window.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I guess the streams of hardware and software start playing distinct roles in there. I think obviously we're going to be dictated by the software platforms that we run, and we've seen that in the lockdown of software platforms dictating technology. But I think people don't want to take no for an answer in a sense where you walk into a room and it's just a Teams room, or it's just a X room or a Y room. If it's a Zoom room, why can't I use my own device to make it a Teams room?
Sure.
And with the number of rooms that we'll be deploying and the cost per room, I think that would be a minimum expectation.
Yep. You might be interested to know the biggest selling product we have so far in this quarter for this financial year is our MX150 with a wireless presentation package off the back of it. And that is, I'm a native Teams room, I have BYOD, and I've got wireless presentation. Because again, as you said, everyone has to be accounted for in every different circumstance. No longer is a room it's nice to have these features and whatever. It's like every room has to be a high priority.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the change and shift. Maybe enterprise won't give up real estate, but reuse the real estate they have. They may only have 50 to 60% staff in at the time, but they'll have 20, 30, 40% more meeting rooms, smaller meeting rooms that'll be used every time. So it's a fundamental shift, I think, but also resource management and asset management, occupancy monitoring, usage, all those things that were the bonus and nice to haves in our world, I think are being looked at a little bit more. Clients are a lot more interested in knowing how their space is being used, being able to remotely manage it. Downtime in meeting rooms is a big thing now. So I think things we were always trying to upsell are now fundamentals in their thought process, which is quite nice.
We've noticed the same with XIO Cloud, as people before thought it was nice to have, and that would be great, but now it's, if I can actually update the room and get the data from it without actually going in the room, so again, it's no one's in the room, it's a less COVID, it's more COVID safe, it's become a priority, if you like. So, one thing's for sure, Roneel, is that the workplace technology industry has a big part to play in getting people back into buildings.
I think, look, the main challenge now will be that every one of these devices are essentially nooks behind screens. Who manages them? How do they get managed? And how do they get deployed? If you've got 300-400 meeting rooms, does that mean you've got 300-400 pieces of devices connected at the edge of that unit to maintain like a fleet of PCs? So I guess that's the next. We're getting into new challenges that we probably weren't facing before.
Well, I think that's why a cloud management tool is now not a nice to have, it's a must, because how could you do it any other way, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting world. I think changes, I think everyone in the design phase and the consultation phase, I think the products are so good now that there's limited design, I would say, or a lot less design because they're packaged up quite nicely with the software, the hardware. I think the consultation and understanding the workflow is going to be key for the client being happy with what they get at the end.
Yeah, I think for consultants, my opinion is it's the consultation piece and the data management piece and the cloud piece are really where you'll be spending most of your time, right?
Yeah.
All right, Roneel, that's interesting times. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
And thanks for joining us on CresTV.